It's October, and that means Hammer-ween. That's right, all month long we're diving into the greatest horror studio of all time, Hammer Films.
I am Dracula, and I welcome you to my house.
What we need is a female victim of sudden death. Can you do it?
He's gone from here. The evil is gone.
We must create from the beginning. We must build up our own creature. Build it up from nothing.
What an excellent take for an exorcism.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
It is entitled Naturam de Manto, roughly translated, Book of the Dead.
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
What's up, horror freaks? I'm your undead horror guide, Boney Stiff, and today we're sinking our teeth into Hammer Films' Horror of Dracula. But before we feast on that blood-soaked classic, let's rewind the coffin lid a bit. Picture this, it's 1931 and Universal's Dracula hits the screen.
Listen to them. Children of the night. What music they make.
With Bela Lugosi bringing the Prince of Darkness to light. Cloaked in shadows and mystery, Lugosi's Dracula became the blueprint for every vampire to follow. Smooth, aristocratic, and let's be real, seriously creepy. By the late 1950s, horror fans craved something more, something with sharper fangs. That's where Hammer Films stepped in, dusting off the Count's cape and unleashing Horror of Dracula in 1958 on an unsuspecting world.
I'm glad that you've arrived safely.
Count Dracula.
I am Dracula, and I welcome you to my house.
And let me tell you, horror freaks, this wasn't your grandpa's vampire movie. It had a real bite. So what made Hammer's Horror of Dracula stand out from Universal's version? In one word, grit. Hammer took the Gothic elegance that Universal perfected and drenched it in Technicolor blood. And I mean that literally. We're talking about bright red blood, raw sensuality, and brutal violence. This wasn't just a new Dracula, it was a Dracula with fangs sharpened for the modern era. More visceral, more dangerous, and absolutely bloodier. Hammer just wasn't there to scare you, they were aiming to steal your soul.
Your soul is mine.
Horror of Dracula leaned into the darker primal side of the Dracula mythos. Instead of Lugosi's suave, mysterious figure, Christopher Lee delivered a towering feral presence that radiated pure menace. His cold, piercing stare could slice through you like a stake to the heart. This wasn't the Dracula of your nightmares, this was the Dracula of your darkest, most primal fears made real. Now let's dive into what Hammer did best. Atmosphere. Gothic castles, shadowy graveyards, and fog-drenched forests, all bathed in rich, saturated colors. The production design was both minimal yet grand, creating a claustrophobic sense of dread that practically oozed off the screen. These sets weren't just backdrops, they were characters in their own right, dripping with menace and decay. The magic? Hammer's commitment to making everything feel real, while Universal's sets were moody and atmospheric, Hammer's had weight and texture. You could almost feel the damp chill of the stone, smell the musty air, and see the dust settling with every scene. And then there's the score by James Bernard, absolutely electrifying, with its pounding rhythm almost like a heartbeat. The music turned every creak of the coffin lid, every flicker of a candle into pure tension, drawing you deeper into the world of Gothic horror. Let's sink our teeth into the heart of it. Christopher Lee versus Bela Lugosi. Lugosi's Dracula was all about charisma and sophistication, an elegant predator who used charm and those hypnotic stares to lure in his victims.
Come here.
Lee's Dracula, though, was a beast, an unstoppable force of nature, tall, menacing, and utterly terrifying when he unleashed that feral snarl. Where Lugosi seduced his prey with suave cunning, Lee hunted them down. His Dracula wasn't just a count, he was a creature driven by pure instinct. And here's the kicker, Lee barely spoke. In Horror of Dracula, he didn't need to. His sheer presence was enough to paralyze anyone with fear. It's no wonder so many horror fans still consider Lee's Dracula the definitive portrait. He struck the perfect balance between primal savagery and aristocratic menace, modernizing the character while keeping the classic Gothic edge. Now, it wasn't just Christopher Lee stealing the show. We've got to give major props to Peter Cushing as Van Helsing, arguably the greatest portrayal of the vampire hunter ever put to film.
You mustn't blame yourself for that, but you must have the courage to let Mina lead us now.
Cushing brought a perfect balance of intellect and action to the role, playing Van Helsing.
I must come back to Adams. I came up here, and he looked like the devil.
Now what happened?
As a man of science and faith, but also as someone who wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty when facing evil head on. His chemistry with Lee set the gold standard for hero-villain dynamics in horror. And the supporting cast, let's not forget Michael Gough, Melissa Stribling, and Carol Marsh, who all brought a certain weight to their roles, grounding the supernatural elements in human fear and emotion.
Arthur, dear brother.
Lucy.
Dear Arthur, why didn't you come sooner? Come, let me kiss you.
Their performances made the stakes feel real, giving the audience something to hold on to amidst the fantastical. It was the masterful blend of horror, humanity, and atmosphere that allowed Horror of Dracula to transcend the genre and become an enduring classic. So why does Horror of Dracula still matter today? Because it revolutionized the way horror was made. Hammer Films pushed the envelope on what could be shown on screen, paving the way for more explicit and daring horror films of the 60s and 70s. Think about it. Without Hammer smashing down the old conventions, there'd be no Psycho, no Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and certainly no Exorcist. Hammer boldly declared, let's make this scarier, bloodier, and sexier. Horror of Dracula didn't just reimagine a Gothic classic, it set the blueprint for modern horror storytelling. Complex, compelling villains, morally ambiguous heroes, and a cinematic language that was more visceral and more graphic and more thrilling than ever before.
This is not Lucy, the sister you loved. It's only a shell, possessed and corrupted by the evil of Dracula. To liberate her soul and give it eternal peace, we must destroy that shell for all time. Believe me, there is no other way.
So there you have it, horror freaks. Horror of Dracula, the film that bled new life into a genre and proved that monsters could be terrifying in a whole new way. It's more than just a remake, it's a revolution. And if you haven't watched it yet, you better get on it. But be warned, this one's not for the faint of heart. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, let me know by smashing the like button and subscribing for more chilling tales of terror from yours truly.
Play with us. Play with us. Play with us.
Don't forget to hammer the undead life out of that bell so you never miss a fright-filled episode. And until next time, keep the lights low and stay stiff.
Under no circumstances may an unauthorized person be permitted to examine. Of course, in the case of an emergency, we do sometimes make an exception.